Today's video is going to be a little bit technical in nature, but in this video I'm going to attempt to explain the differences between a compensating and a non-compensating instrument. This fella here is an E-flat bass. It's one of two types of tuba that we use in a brass band, except in a brass band we don't call it a tuba, we call it a bass. These basses generally have piston valves. You'll have three up the top, which you'll play with your right hand, and if you're very lucky you'll have a fourth down the bottom, or rather on the side. This differs from orchestral tubas in a couple of ways. Firstly, we hold it like this instead of around that way, and secondly we've got those piston valves instead of rotary valves. With piston valves we have two main sorts of arrangements for the valves to have. First is compensating and the second is non-compensating. In a non-compensating instrument we simply have valves 1, 2, 3 and 4. So to demonstrate what a non-compensating valve system looks like, I'm going to use my piccolo trumpet here. This is in the key of B flat, and the first valve has a tuning slide, the second valve has a small tuning slide, the third valve has this tuning slide, and the fourth valve has this long tuning slide here. Now the fourth valve lowers the instrument by a perfect fourth. It is the same as pressing the first and third valves together. And what it does on instruments is it increases the low notes that are available to you. So for instance, the lowest note on this instrument, if it only had three valves, would be this. But because I've got the fourth valve, I can now play lower. That extra range is very desirable to tuba players as well as some other instruments, and that's why you see four valve euphoniums, basses, tubas, baritones, and the fourth valve on a brass instrument is the exact same thing as a trigger does on a trombone. But the problem that we've got here is that when you press the fourth valve, you're effectively turning the instrument into a different sized instrument. So let me explain that for a second. This is an E-flat trumpet. The first valve tuning slide is about that long, and it needs to be that long because that length makes it in tune with this instrument. This instrument can also play in the key of D instead of the key of E-flat. But when it plays in the key of D, it needs a tuning slide slightly longer. So what you need to do if you want to make this trumpet play in D is that you need to remove all the tuning slides and replace them with tuning slides that are slightly bigger. So again, the first valve tuning slide on an E-flat trumpet is about that long, and the first valve tuning slide on a B-flat trumpet is about that long, much longer. But the trouble is with the piccolo trumpet, we're changing it from a B-flat instrument to an F instrument, but these tuning slides stay the same length, which means they'll no longer play in tune. And that dilemma is a dilemma that gets solved when you have a compensating valve system, because it compensates for the extra length of tubing that you've added by pressing the fourth valve. On this E-flat bass, if we press the fourth valve, it lowers the instrument from E-flat and it puts it into the key of B-flat. But the tuning slides stay the same length. So the magic that it does is that when you press the fourth valve, as well as these tuning slides on the front, it also adds these tuning slides on the back. So we've got the first valve tuning slide here, but when you push the fourth valve, the first valve also has this tuning slide here. This little fellow up in here is the second valve tuning slide, and this fellow here is the third valve tuning slide. These extra loops of tubing are only used when the fourth valve has been pressed. And so in that way this system compensates for the extra depth of the instrument, because these lengths of tubing are being effectively added on to the natural lengths of tubing that we have on the front. This makes an instrument quite a lot more complicated. It makes the instrument more difficult and more expensive to produce, but it's the reason why tubas with piston valves only need 4 valves. Rotary valves don't come with the same compensating arrangement, and so to play all the notes in tune, you see tubas with 5, 6, 7 valves in order to ensure that they're playing every note in tune. With piston valves that are compensating like this tuba has, you don't need any more than 4 valves because you can reach every note chromatically and have it be in tune. I do apologise if this explanation has been a little bit long-winded and hasn't really made too much sense. It makes perfect sense in my head. I'm just not always able to articulate that as well as I may like. So if you've got any follow-up questions, if you've got anything you want to ask me, feel free to ask and I'll try my best to explain it. Undoubtedly, if you Google compensating valves or tuba with compensating valves, I'm sure you'll get some fantastic resources online that explain this concept much better than I do. But yes, thanks very much for watching.